We Kanda here in Accra and Tamale. We're live on Kesmi 107.1 FM. If you can hear us in White on W93.5 around the world, we're streaming live on 3news.com. Coming up this morning, rights group Amnesty International takes on gender ministry for failing to protect women accused of witchcraft in the northern part of the country following the lynching of two people over the weekend for witchcraft.
Yet we have a whole ministry for protecting the vulnerable in society that have paid little, or let me say, no particular attention to this particular menace.
They want the bill on criminalizing witchcraft accusations passed quickly. Also this morning, former chair of the Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, Professor Frimpong Boateng, breaks silence on content of the 36-page leaked report as he dares all named persons to seek whatever redress they may deem fit.
He says that he doesn't even own even one concession. He's ready to take you on in court.
He's free to do that. I'm waiting for it.
National Security Minister Albert Kandapa expresses reservations over Supreme Court ruling allowing the Auditor General to surcharge public officials culpable in financial mismanagement.
You would have observed from all that I have said today that I do not entirely agree with the Supreme Court of Ghana's ruling on this matter. Be that as it may, I respect and I accept the Supreme Court's ruling.
And as we continue our build-up to the primaries of the opposition National Democratic Congress, the camp of Dr. Kwabena Dufo is calling for the postponement of this weekend's election over a flawed register. Details of these stories and a lot more in the next 10 minutes. A pleasure that you could be a part of this morning's bulletin. I am Eric Mawuena Egbeta. Let's settle for the details now, because this morning, rights group Amnesty International is questioning the attitude of the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection in ending witchcraft accusations against women following the lynching of two persons in Zakbalsi in the Mion district of the northern region. A middle-aged mother of 7 believed to be in her 40s and a man believed to be in his early 60s were allegedly lynched over the weekend for causing another person to be sick after the woman's family had consulted a soothsayer. Speaking to Alfredo Kansi on Ghana Tonight, board chair of Amnesty International Francis Nyantechi laid culpability at the doorstep of the gender ministry over their failure to help end the cycle. And we'll hear from Amnesty International shortly, but for the executive director of the Sani Institute, Professor John Azuma, families who suffer such witchcraft attacks will need more than legislation as impunity reigns supreme in the Ghanaian community.
They can get an MP to intervene. They can get some senior opinion leader in the community to intervene on their behalf and get them out of jail. And when that fails, they know they can get family members to put pressure on the victim's family to drop the case for their own safety. And so there are multiple factors, Alfred, because unless and until the victims and their families are empowered and protected to stand up to these bullies and murderers, there is no way this is going to stop.
That's Professor John Azuma. He's the executive director of the Sani Institute, and we'll hear from Amnesty International in our subsequent bulletins. Away from this, former Minister of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation and the chair of the defunct Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, Professor Frimpong Boateng, says he stands by every single word contained in his report to the president. The heart surgeon, who's broken his silence since the details of his 36-page report leaked, says all persons who feel aggrieved can go to court. He adds he is ready to avail himself to any credible committee seeking to look into the matter. He's been speaking to us in an exclusive interview.
I'm a very serious person. I want to a targeted approach to solving this problem. So if there's a committee and my ideas are still needed and so on, I'm still a Ghanaian and I really want this menace, put aside.
The former member of parliament for Manson Kwanta constituency, for instance, whom you said that owns multiple dozens of concessions while he was a member of the Minerals Commission Board. He says that he doesn't even own even one concession. He's ready to take you on in court.
He's free to do that. I'm waiting for it.
You're waiting for him to go to court?
Yes.
You have evidence to back the fact that he
I'm waiting for him.
Concessions.
I'm waiting for him. I've told you already that I stand by everything that I wrote. So that to answer all the questions that you are trying to pose.
Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng is the former chair of the defunct Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining. The excerpt of that interview will air later this morning if you stay with us here on 3FM Sunrise. Away from this, the National Security Minister Albert Kandapar says he disagrees with the Supreme Court decision allowing the Auditor General to surcharge public officials culpable for financial mismanagement. The Supreme Court, in an application filed by Occupy Ghana, ruled that the Auditor General's role goes beyond just investigations into public financial management to include their powers to disallow and surcharge officials found culpable. But according to Albert Kandapar, who is a former chair of Parliament's Public Accounts Committee, he disagrees.
You would have observed from all that I have said today that I do not entirely agree with the Supreme Court of Ghana's ruling on this matter. Be that as it may, I respect and I accept the Supreme Court's ruling because as far as the interpretation of constitutional provisions is concerned, it is not what I say, but rather what the Supreme Court says. But we should not let the matter lie there. I think the Audit Service and civil society, Parliament, we should all come together to find a better way out of it all.
That's National Security Minister Albert Kandapar. Let's do politics now as we continue to build up to the NDC Congress come May 13 here on 3FM, and the campaign team of flag bearer aspirant of the opposition National Democratic Congress, Dr. Kwabena Dufo, is demanding the postponement of the May 13 presidential primaries over what they described as a flawed register. A petition sent to the Electoral Commission and the Election Committee of the NDC under the signature of Kofi Kukubo, the head of research and strategy with the campaign team of Dr. Dufo, expressed their views that the extensive review of the voters register or photo album for the 220 constituencies have identified several discrepancies that render the register incomplete or inaccurate, and there'll be a lot more on this if you stay with us here on 3FM. But the battle line appears to have been drawn as Vice commentary continue to come through. Here is former Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Kokwani Doho, who is opposed to delegates voting back John Mahama to be the flag bearer of the NDC.
On the 9th of 24th July 2012, you held the sword of state and you swore an oath. On the 7th of January 2013, you held the sword of state and swore an oath. You held it twice. Why do you want to hold it 3 times and be a curse upon the country?
That's Kokwani Doho. He's a former Deputy General Secretary of the opposition National Democratic Congress. Away from this, and the World Health Organization has commenced a risk factor surveillance training in Ghana to collect data to curb the rising numbers in non-communicable diseases. The data collection is intended to develop interventional strategies to combat non-communicable diseases. Bafuiwa is a technical director at the Ministry of Health.
Some of the risk factors are unhealthy lifestyle, tobacco use, harmful use of alcohol, physical inactivity, and the like. We don't have a national data that depicts the severity of risk factors. But in our policy too, we also want to reduce exposure to risk factors. So if you don't have mechanism to measure the degree of existence of these risk factors, then you can also not have a solid intervention.
You had there Bafoewa, who is the technical director at the Ministry of Health, and in this morning's edition of the news here on 3FM 92.7. As always, a lot more news when you log on to 3news.com. Johnny Hughes and the rest of the Sunrise team, they're up next with breakfast.